strongly push quality and customer service here at our nursery. We've done this for many, many years, decades, and we're proud of that, and our customers really do appreciate what we're doing here, the product that they do receive from us. It's very important for us to take care of our customers.
On a beautiful spring day, 2 Caswell County Extension agents joined commercial nursery and greenhouse area specialized agent Stacy Jones on a tour of Hoffman Nursery in Rougemont, North Carolina. They grow over 140 different types of grasses for landscape customers, and each variety requires a little different care. Some are started from seeds and can be planted with this vacuum planter, before being moved out into a greenhouse bench. Here, they have the option to warm them from below using these tubes that carry a warm solution. Production manager Bryce Davis was nice enough to give us a tour, and production crew member Bip shows us how the grass clumps are divided from one plant into many.
So what Bip's doing now is he's dividing the crops. This is the next step in the process after trimming. This is a chance for us to further clean the plants up with anything. It's also where we're going to divide into the size pot we're actually planting into.
Depending on the variety, desired end size, and customer, plants can be grown in a variety of tray sizes. Some plants require hand transplanting on this machine, whereas others can be done with a mechanical transplanter.
We do about 60-65% division items. Those cannot go through this machine. This is for already established small plugs going into our destination tray or sellable tray.
In both cases, growing media is brought in from the storage pad automatically to fill the trays and minimize labor requirements. Plants can then be moved into cold frame hoop houses or into their state-of-the-art climate-controlled greenhouse. Here's head grower Bill Hall explaining a little about this impressive greenhouse.
We're standing on what looks like a typical concrete floor, but actually this floor is built in such a way to deliver bottom heat. So we have hosing running through, attached to a boiler that is providing hot water through this hoses that is heating the floor. Now, what does that do? That is a very efficient way to deliver heat, because we are delivering heat to the root zone, which is where we want the activity to happen. This greenhouse is oftentimes, these products that we're seeing right now was started here. This was a dormant, this was done in the dead of winter. So when you walk in here on a cold winter's day, it might feel a little chilly, but as you reach down and touch this, you'll notice it's very warm. Whereas the other material in the cold frames has to be hardened off before winter comes. So this has really expanded our being able to produce plants throughout the year. One of the big features of this greenhouse, and a big difference between it and the cold frames, is this house has environmental controls. It is delivered by Argus, which is a computerized panel right over there on the wall there, and also accessible through desktops. What we do is we set parameters. We tell the program we want to maintain this temperature in this house, this humidity level in this house, and that the Argus system does all the necessary adjustments to try and hit those targeted goals. So you'll see vents open up to let air in. You'll see walls open up to let air in. Now, if a rainstorm happens, it'll sense that as well, because there's a weather station that also feeds into this system. It will close to make sure we don't have washouts if the rain hits. Through the winter nights on freezes, we could make sure that we've got, we're maintaining the temperature setting that we need. It's very valuable to us here, and it really makes our life much easier. They provide actually very regular and very uniform delivery of water. That's the beauty of the boom. It allows us to program, so we could have various programs running on in this house within these ranges, and we can run mist through them before the plants are actually rooted. Once they are rooted, we could deliver irrigation through them. So it's a huge labor saver, because imagine how long it would take an individual with a hose to cover this big an area. It's a huge labor saving, and it also gives us a chance to chemigate, to actually put chemicals through and deliver chemicals without having to hand spray. We call this the super cutter. This was developed in New Zealand for harvesting of tea. This is how we prune plants mechanically. Now, prior to this machine coming to Hoffman Nursery, we would prune everything by hand, which was a very time-consuming activity. And the first year we had this, it realized 1,800 hours of saved time from pruning by hand. You notice there was a bag there that collects all the waste, so therefore that waste isn't falling on top of the plant material and requiring it be raked out and removed. So it catches in that bag, and we empty the bag as it fills. Now, we use this machine quite often in the summer months. We're cutting plants every 7 to 10 days. Just like your lawn, it grows, you need to cut your lawn once a week. We're doing the same thing here. And what we try to do, why do we do it? We want to provide as much sun and air movement to the base of the plant. We don't want it to get too thick, because then we're going to harbor disease.
Now that you know a little bit about the process of growing plants, let's talk with David and John Hoffman about how this nursery got started and their goals for the future.
In the early to mid 80s, I had a landscape company in the Raleigh-Durham area. It was small but successful, and it seemed like at some point, and it was the mid 80s when we started thinking it could be time to take the next step in the horticultural world. Landscaping was first for us. We felt like the nursery could be our next step. So that's where we decided, yes, let's do that. Hence moving to northern Durham County onto our 45-acre farm, and thinking about how do we set this up, what do we grow. And during my landscape years, I was working with a couple of landscape designers who knew perennials and grasses much more than I did. I was amazed to find out what this part of horticulture was. It was quite gorgeous, and I was just kind of blown away especially by the grass world. We could see the popularity there. We had no idea what we were getting into, how it was going to develop for us, and it has really it just exploded over the many years that we've been doing this, for 35 years or so. So it's really come a long way. We ship to the majority of the United States and to Canada. And North Carolina is our largest customer, which has been quite a surprise. There's so much activity going on here. We do sell a lot to the Northeast, a lot to the Midwest. We have, again, a couple of customers in California, but it's amazing to me that there's so many sales going on here just inside North Carolina.
Grew up in the business, as you mentioned, starting from a young age. We were pulling weeds for chewing gum, and it was all fun at that point. But I ended up going to NC State for horticulture. My work was able to begin when I was in high school, actually working at the J.C. Ralston. Dr. Warner had hired me, so I got to work there for several years throughout my university experience, and went to school at NC State for horticulture. And then from there, wasn't allowed to come back to the business right away, so I ended up going to work for a plant nursery that specialized in grasses, and that was located in Germany. And so I had the experience to start out as an intern for a year to be able to see the entire process, and they actually kept me on for another year as working in their production department and helping plan and coordinate labor, and kind of help lead the team. So that was a good experience. I really enjoyed that. After that, I ended up coming back to the nursery to help out and work in various departments, and that was about the time that we had started started to build our Gutter Connect greenhouse. Mm-hmm. And I was taking on projects at that point. We had just decided to purchase a transplanting line for some of our plug production, and also climate controlled greenhouses and things like that. And so I was kind of at the beginning of getting those systems set up, and trying to help our team through the process and get our team trained up to be able to handle that.
We've got connections around the world that we're able to acquire through the APHIS program. We're able to acquire grasses that we're able to get into the country and trial, that are bred overseas and gotten into the United States, and then we were able to again grow them out, produce them, and so on. So we've got yes, we do have a handful of items that we do, and we're the only ones in the United States that have them. So we're working with, there's a famous designer in Holland, Piet Oudolf, and he has a collection of grasses and perennials, and we have his grasses here in the United States, and we're the only ones that have his grasses. So we're very close with Pete. We try to follow and make sure that just what's coming down the pike we want to know. We'll get them into the country, trial them, and that's how it's working with, at least with Pete at this point. So we've got some others. There's a breeder in Belgium we work with. We have connections with South Korea. We're very excited about that. We met a grass producer over there at one of the local trade shows, well, East Coast trade show, and he came to visit us, so that was very exciting. So yeah, it's great to have these connections around the world.
Labor right now is, as everyone has heard, is a difficult obstacle to overcome. Whether it's people wanting to get into this industry, I mean, typically it's a lower wage than, working at McDonald's or some of the other places, and so I think it's hard for us to compete with that. We're located next to Durham, so there's a lot of higher paying jobs, some of the hospital jobs and things like that, that it makes it more difficult for us to compete. On top of that, we're 30 minutes outside of the city too, so you're talking about somebody that has to be able to drive. There's not a bus that comes out, so transportation can be an issue. So there's a lot of factors, I think, that play into that. But I think that that's probably the biggest issue that we're facing, because we have orders that we can make plants for. It's just we don't have the people to be able to make the plants. And so it's taking everybody to be able to work together to try to get through the process and continue to work together to make it work. So, we have on our staff, we have an HR director, and she's in charge of helping find people. So she's been very creative about how to find people locally, and we've tried to work together to find some solutions for this. But there's nothing great on the horizon necessarily as far as like a golden ticket. We've looked into automation as a potential solution to offset some of it, but that's not going to be a game. I mean, it will help, but it's not a solution to a problem. I mean, you can't, for our processes, when you're taking a plant and splitting it, that's not something we can necessarily automate. I mean, that takes a person's touch to be able to feel it and be able to pull the plants apart, and then on top of that, taking care that they're not damaged. Kind of looking into the future, one of the things that we've discussed is, the sustainability, a lot of the resources that we're doing, whether it's stock material, whether it's soil, whether it's switching from perlite to hydrofiber. Plastics is going to be a huge problem in our industry in the future. That's something that I've been looking at incredibly hard recently. There's been a lot of talk in Europe about reducing the plastic or switching to entirely recycled plastic. That I don't know how that's going to be something we need to continue to look at. There's some fiber pots out there, and they're okay, but for automation purposes, they're not there yet. All of the plastic companies out there all are beginning to they're beginning to do research and figure out, because they are starting to recognize that this is going to go away as a business model, but they're certainly not there yet. So I expect to see a lot of growth in that over the next few years. As far as options and trays and production, I'd like to try to get the same tray that I have now, because of the benefits that it offers, but in a fiber tray or something like that. So that's just something. And then, hopefully it would be compostable, so that our customers would be able to throw it out with their compost and it would break down. So I think that's going to be something over the next 5 years that we're going to have to really tackle, that coupled with carbon footprints. A lot of the bigger growers out there are starting to get pushback from both carbon footprint and pollinator discussions about neonicotinoids, and not having any of those or applied to the plants that they're growing, that could end up at a Lowe's, Home Depot, IGC, or independent garden centers and places like that. So I think we're going to see a lot more focus on those over the next few years, and it's going to go throughout this supply chain. So it's going to be, whether it goes all the way back to the soil suppliers and through us, or kind of we'll have to be ahead of that as far as the way we're looking at our product and how our product interacts with not only our customer but the end consumer, even as a wholesaler. That's something I think we're going to have to be a lot more conscious of in the future.
We all enjoyed our tour of the Hoffman Nursery, and I hope you did too. One thing that really stood out to us is the amazing diversity of grasses being offered to their customers, the incredibly high quality product being produced, and the absolute passion that everyone at Hoffman Nursery has for what they do. It was also quite clear that they are constantly innovating and striving for ways to reduce their environmental impact and decrease their reliance on single-use plastics and peat from non-renewable sources. They may appear to have everything figured out and dialed in, but they have a mentality of constant improvement and innovation, and that is what is going to keep them a driver in the industry for many years to come.